Hey, it's Andrew from Predenting Dental School Admissions Advising, and today I am here with Farah, who got accepted not only to her dream schools, but also to some of the best and most competitive dental schools in the US and in the world. Farah, I'm super excited to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have others hear about your story and your results and inspire them. Can you start by giving a little bit of background about yourself?
I've lived in Florida my entire life. So I go to the University of Central Florida right now in Orlando. And I kind of knew that I always wanted to stay in Florida, even when going to dental school. So the goal was to kind of just get into any of the Florida schools, because I do really like it here and it's close to my family. But aside from the location and stuff, at the University of Central Florida, I'm majored in biomedical sciences, and I'm also a director at the Predental Student Association. So I'm very involved and just love giving my time to the organization as well.
Yeah, and I remember when we first spoke, you were talking about how the dream schools were in Florida. To give a little teaser, did you end up getting accepted to the schools in Florida?
Yes, I did.
And which ones?
I got into the University of Florida and Nova Southeastern.
Nice, there we go. Okay. And then when you were gearing up for the application process, what was going through your mind in terms of what you were looking for either help with, what you had questions about, or fears or anxieties about? What was that like when you were gearing up for the application?
Yeah, I remember just going back to that time. I was feeling very lost and overwhelmed. My personal statement has not even been written at that point. I didn't know how to even start it. The activities description, I didn't know, how to word it in a way that dental schools were looking for, and just interviews as well. I was really stressed out about the interview part of the application cycle process. So I knew I think that I knew in order to gain my fullest potential, I did need advising and guidance, and that is exactly what I got. And, I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, it's been an awesome journey. So then once we started working through that stuff, how was that process? Did it become a lot clearer for you, more efficient? Did some of those troubles go away? What was that like?
Yeah, definitely. I remember just after each phone call that we did have, I was feeling, more and more confident in myself and my ability as an applicant. You do a really good job at honing in the strengths and just really amplifying those so that I do turn out a competitive applicant. So I just remember after every meeting we had, whether that would be, the activities descriptions or working with your team on the personal statement, and then slowly transitioning into interview preps, I just became more confident in myself, and I went into the cycle very confident. And I think that definitely helped me a lot.
Yeah, and it definitely paid off in the end. But before we dive into that a little bit more in depth, talking about the interview prep process, obviously we worked together through the interview prep. You also had the opportunity to do a mock interview with Dr. Diaz, who is an actual former dental school interviewer and conducted interviews before. How was that and working with an insider for that interview prep process?
Yeah, I feel like I would not have done as well as I did in my interviews without that. I think just talking one on one and practicing that and practicing, the mannerisms and stuff. Um, and just the questions that were asked by your team, I have gotten the same ones in my interviews. So I will say in my interviews, nothing came as a shock to me. There wasn't any questions where I was like, oh my gosh. So I think the prep was definitely one of my favorite things because it did really help me a lot.
With that prep, do you feel like you went into your interviews with more confidence and just feeling like, I got this?
Yeah, 100%. I remember my first interview, I was definitely the most nervous because it was my first. But once I kept going and doing them and reviewing our prep in the documents that we did, I had no anxiety. I was confident in myself. And I think that really helped, just being confident in yourself and your accomplishments, and, knowing that like you deserve to be there and is important. And that is something that Predenting definitely helped me accomplish.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, super important to go into those interviews and be your true, happy, best, passionate self, so you could focus on connecting with the interviewer and really kind of impressing them, so that you do convert that interview into an acceptance. And that's one of the things that, and really why we brought in kind of former interviewers, is because so many people get to that interview stage and then they fail to convert the interview into an acceptance, which is probably the most devastating thing to happen, especially if you were to have interviews at kind of like dream schools, and then that happens. It's like all that work, and then the interview is kind of where it failed. But that obviously was not your case. You crushed it. You were very well prepared, and I'm very happy. And let's transition into that. So acceptance day comes around. What did acceptances look like for you?
Yeah, so that was a really crazy day. My brother was also getting knee surgery at the same time, so I was kind of just, going back and forth. But I got my first call around 6:30 in the morning from the University of Florida, which was my absolute dream school. So that being my first acceptance just really nailed it for me. I was so happy. And then I got at 9 a.m. an email from Columbia, which was so surreal. It's an Ivy League. I never expected that I would get into a school like that. And, it was just a really emotional day for me. And then later on, I got a call from Nova, which was also a dream because, it is in Florida, and that was also the goal. So just getting those 3 acceptances was just, I don't even have words to describe the feeling. It was just like so relieving that my hard work paid off. But also I had a post-December interview at Penn in January, and I just recently got accepted there as well a couple weeks ago. So I got into those 4 schools, and I'm extremely happy with my results. I couldn't ever imagine Penn and Columbia and the University of Florida, just all those schools. It's just so great.
Yeah, all amazing schools. And maybe some people don't know this, but all 3 of those schools, UPenn, Columbia, UF, are some of the most competitive to get into, and also ranked as some of the top 10, both in the US and in the entire world. So a huge kudos to you. You absolutely crushed it there. And then let's talk about cost for a second here in terms of the different dental schools, because obviously UPenn, Columbia, UF, all top tier schools. I understand that you wanted to stay close to home or in-state, so UF is the big one for you. But did you look at the difference in cost of attendance for schools like UPenn, Columbia, Nova versus a school like UF, which is the in-state school for you?
Yeah, so that was definitely a deciding factor, a big one actually, when I made my decision, because although I said from the get-go UF was my dream school, it still took me a very long time to decide, because I didn't imagine, getting all of those acceptances. So it really just took a lot of days of just sitting down with my parents and like discussing, and we made a pros and a cons list. So it wasn't just like from the get-go, okay, UF, like I'm going there. So in terms of like the pros and cons list, cost of attendance was a huge part of that. But I would say in terms of that aspect, if your dream school is one of those schools, cost is important and debt is a real thing, but I don't think it should be the number one thing when you're deciding a school, because, that's 4 years of your life and you want to go somewhere that you really would enjoy. Just for me, UF was the number one because it was in Florida, and it is cheaper than those other schools. It is like public in-state school. So that was definitely a factor for me, but it wasn't the sole deciding factor.
Right, yes. And for most people, I 100% agree with you in terms of cost should not be the only thing, right? Just try to get into the cheapest school, but it is nice to have options, right? Especially when also your dream school, or like one of them, that you can get accepted to saves you $100,000, $150,000 compared to a Columbia, UPenn. Not to say that people shouldn't go to those schools just because of the cost. They certainly should, great schools. But a lot of people just don't know that in terms of how big of a variation there can be in the cost to attend different schools, and for some who focus maybe a little bit more on the finances, or they are a little bit tighter there, of course it is important that they consider what that could mean in terms of finances to save that $100,000, $150,000, whatever it is, what the difference is with some of these schools. But yes, 100%. And I love that you brought up the problem all of a sudden became, now what school do I attend now that I have the Columbia, UF, that kind of thing. Because one of the things I always thought about was, it's always a good thing if my students' biggest problem is, which school do I choose to attend now that I have these acceptances? So I love to hear that, and it brings a smile to my face. That was your one of the biggest challenges or problems come acceptance season. So having gone through this process, what advice would you give to pre-dentals who are watching this and are gearing up to get ready to apply?
Yeah, I would definitely say that if you are feeling overwhelmed or lost or just don't know where to start, it's okay to ask for help and reach out for advice, because I definitely would not have gotten the results that I did without doing my research and seeking out help from Andrew and his team. So definitely it is an investment in your future, and I think it is well worth it, because I was happy with my results. And so I would say definitely don't hesitate to reach out and ask for help if you need to, because it will pay off and it is beneficial.
So then in the end, would you say the investment was worth it?
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah, if I could go back and do it again, I would. I don't think I would have gotten here without the help, just the personal statement itself, honestly, I don't think it would have reached its fullest potential without the help, and just the interview prep. I think that was my favorite part, just preparing for those interviews, because I think that is the most daunting part of the whole experience. And it just helped me gain the confidence that I needed, and it was well worth it.
Awesome. I love to hear that. Any other last words of wisdom for anyone gearing up and getting ready for this process?
Yeah, I just want to say good luck to everyone. I know what it's like to be in your shoes, but if you are thinking about choosing Andrew and his Predenting team, it will be well worth, and you are in good hands. And I think you should definitely make the investment, because I got into some of the best schools, like we said, in the country. And, I'm extremely satisfied with my results.
I'm happy to hear that, and that's what this is all about. And nothing makes my day more than hearing that, and knowing that you are now set for these next 4 years, and of course what this means, not just for the next 4 years, but of course your future, and it is looking bright.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Farah, for taking the time to share your story and your experience. And I hope a lot of pre-dentals are inspired by it and move on to the next steps.
Yes, thank you so much for everything.